the student was an international student who came in with a paper and they'd gotten a C. So they were really upset and just kind of wanted to know what to do for the future. So it wasn't a draft or anything, it was actually their final paper. But they were wondering what they could do better next time. And so basically, all it said was in red pen, which I know is really scary for people, is C in like a circle. And it said, "It looks like you're still having trouble with English. Visit the writing center."
It was one of those papers where the professor just tries and corrects all the grammar. And it's covered in pen of different colors from multiple times of getting it back and sending it back over. And so she's in tears, and essentially like one of the comments and what he told her to do is go to the writing center to learn English.
A lot of the movement was, you need to move this to make sense, or why this word is not English. Like I incorporated a lot of Spanish words because, a lot of Spanish words are said around my house. And they're like, no, you can't use that because like, you don't know if the people who are reading this know Spanish, so they're not gonna know what you're saying. You can't start a statement with, some Spanish words, or just very attacking words that not only attacked my like language, my Spanish, but like attacked my culture, because they felt that I needed to please a board of admissions.
So my family comes from Afghanistan. They're refugees from Afghanistan, and we speak Farsi at home. But obviously I'm fluent in English. And I remember I submitted my first essay, and she commented that she didn't understand my writing. Like she couldn't understand what I was saying. And that like she was getting lost in my sentence structure, and then she was getting lost in my points, and then she couldn't understand what I was saying. And I remember I was like I'm a sophomore in college. I've submitted so much writing. If people couldn't understand what I was saying, I don't think I would have gotten this far. And like since then, I feel like I think about her comment every single time I write a sentence.
I've seen people cry in front of me reading their instructor's comments, or just being so confused and flustered that they just emotionally, there's a lot of spillage. I think at least twice a year, I've seen that happen. So we foster these really bad habits and attitudes towards writing when we know that people are going into this experience believing they're not good at it, believing they don't have the talent for it or the intellectual abilities to convey themselves on paper. Those comments don't help that. They only make it worse.
I mean, I don't think you can even think of yourself as a writer after that. If someone tells you you don't even know a language, how can you think about your identity, as a writer? A language and the ability to write well are not the same thing.
And I think a lot of times when they could have made experiences, like when they could have taken a situation and turned it into a learning experience, it was just turned into something like condescending. That it like made me feel little, like, I wouldn't even say that made me feel like little, like it fed into an imposter syndrome. But I mean, it affected me in my day-to-day. I feel like I just became aware of the environment that I was in, and I started to see it in so many different spaces.
I just felt frustrated, and I didn't feel motivated to put the same kind of effort into any of my other papers for that class. I kind of figured, if the best that I can do isn't good enough for the professor, then what's the point in me trying anymore? And I just felt upset, a little bit defeated, but mostly just like, I don't have the energy to care about this anymore.
In my early years of college, I've learned not to say, because I understand how bad it sounds, but there's this common perception in the minority community that you have to sound white in order to get jobs, feel accepted. And I think I tried so hard to sound that way, at least sound like I was raised growing up, like, as English was my first language.
Racism has really gave the impression that only white people have academic thoughts or good thoughts. And neutralizing language, especially racialized language, which is usually only referring to white people, right? So even when we say he or she or they, when we try to take race out of the picture, then the default speaker is envisioned as white.
It's hard, especially when it's a student and a professor, like talking to a professor about that, like the person who controls your grade is scary. And those conversations are scary in general, but especially when you're a student and you feel like maybe you don't have the power in the situation. And so implicit bias and microaggressions, I feel like they add up, like the more that you experience them, the more they just kind of build up, and it's hurtful and detrimental to your well-being. So I feel like it's really important to address those as much as we, talk about addressing explicit bias and oppression. I think they're just as important and impactful, like on a person. And even if it wasn't the intention, I think intention and impact are different, right? And so you may not intend for any bias to come across, because usually people don't, but it can be subconscious.
Good intentions mean very little if the consequences are negative. We can have the best intentions in the world that we want. If we create harm, if we do damage, we have to apologize, we have to rectify, and we have to do better. A good intention and hope is not going to be sufficient if we really want to dismantle the ramifications of racism in our teachings and learning and schooling.